Hello, my friend. You are listening to Pod, and today we've got a special guest. So we are joined by Haylee LaRose, and Haylee is a website designer for coaches, creatives, and online entrepreneurs who want to do good and create a huge impact on the world and those around them. With 10 plus years of experience working in the creative industry, she helps her clients to completely uplevel their DIY websites through both design and strategy so they can finally feel confident in their online presence and become magnetic to aligned clients. She lives in New York with her husband and two cats, and she is also a spin class devotee, lover of nature, Earl Grey tea, and cooking competition shows. First of all, yes, those who don't, I mean, none of you guys would know,
Yes.
but like we were just chatting about the fact that you literally have a spin, what is it, a spin bike? A cycle,
Yes.
a something
Spin
in your
bike.
house, the spin bike in your house right now. And I was like, genius.
Hi there. Thanks for tuning in to Pod, a podcast crafted by Tiana Tai to help you purify your purpose in business, love, and life. Whether you're an entrepreneur, dog mom, or just getting started, you're bound to find value as Tiana dives into meaningful topics each episode. So, settle in, turn up the volume, and welcome your host, Tiana Tai.
I've got to take just a quick second to ask you for a serious bit of support. Pod would not be possible without your reviews, your comments, and just all of the positive feedback that we've been receiving so far. So if you haven't already, please go on, hit subscribe to make sure you're not missing out on any of this good and free content, and also be sure to leave a review. You may think that I'm not looking at them, but I swear to you, my friend, I read every single review and it just makes my heart so happy. So if you haven't already done so, hit pause, leave a review, and then let's get back to the goodness. So, Haylee, if you could just introduce yourself, tell us all about you, how you got to where you are today. We are all ears.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. First of all, I'm so excited to chat with you. I'm going to take it back quite a ways, just to kind of give you some background on where I came from and how I got to where I am today. My background is actually in film editing and photography. I actually went to school for that. And um, I decided after college that I didn't want to stay in New York City like a lot of my other friends. I wanted to move back upstate, which is where I grew up, about an hour and a half north of New York City. I really just love being surrounded by nature and like the mountains and the river and like all of those things. Like the city life just wasn't for me anymore. You know, it was like great for school. But so when I moved back up, I wasn't finding as many job opportunities in the creative field. So I actually ended up being a school photographer, which I didn't
Hmm.
even, it's so interesting, right? I didn't even know that was even a real job. I mean, obviously, you if you have kids, they get school pictures taken every year. So I did that for about 4 years, and it was really fun, but it was also really crazy because I was driving all over the place, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, all these different schools, like photographing kids from like pre-K all the way up to college level. So all types of different experiences there. And for a while I was like, oh, this is okay, but is it really what I want to be doing for, the rest of my life, the next 10 years? Um, and it was like in a creative field, but it didn't really feel creative to me because it was, kind of like a grind. You go into a school, you're photographing like hundreds of kids per day. So it kind of took that creative spark out of it. So I started looking for what was next for me. And like I said, I did that for about 4 years. And my mom is a health coach, and she had had a VA for a while. And she was like, you know what, Haylee, I think maybe this could be a great option for you, to become a VA, to start my own business, which was something I never even considered, which is funny because my now husband, several people in my family, both my parents, my grandparents, they had all owned their own businesses and still do to this day. But it never crossed my mind, to start my own business. It's a really scary leap, especially as like an introverted person. I was really shy. I was like, how am I going to, connect with people and, start to bring on clients and build my own business? It just seemed quite honestly crazy at the time. But my mom was really encouraging, and I was so fortunate to have like the support of everyone in my family. And they were like, you have like this customer service experience, you have like tech knowledge, you have your creative background, like this could be a really good fit for you. So I had like a little bit of a break, sort of like the slower season at the photography job. And I was like, I'm going to take this time and really devote myself to learning how to run my own business and, start bringing on clients. And I actually took a course. It was a 6-month course for how to run a VA business specifically. So not like,
Oh, wow.
not so much like the skills side of it, but like how to start your own business, all of those like foundational pieces. And I gave myself a deadline, and I was like, it was after I completed the course, I think it was about 3 months. And I was like, do or die. I don't want to go back to this job. I want to really give it a go and just kind of take that leap. And within that time period, I had brought on enough clients to actually match what I was making at my other job, which was crazy to me. And so by the time that date came, I was just like, bye. It's like, I'm done. I'm out. And it was like the coolest thing ever. I mean, obviously, because you have your own business, but it's just like, it was so empowering and so just like magical to be your own boss. And so that was 3 years ago. So I've had my business now for over 3 years. And within that time, I had built my VA business up to capacity. I was working with like really wonderful clients, and I started to get this like little, I guess, whisper, in the back of my mind that was like, what if like is there something more creative that you could be doing? Because for VAs, it can be very tech heavy or very admin heavy, which is a part of me, and I enjoy doing those things. I get a lot of satisfaction off, checking off the list, and things like that. And I loved supporting my clients in that way, but something was starting to feel like a little bit, I guess, off, and I didn't really recognize at the time that I think it was like my intuition, that was like kind of knocking at the door a little bit and was like, maybe there's something else. Maybe there's something else that could maybe feel more aligned for you. And so while I was doing the VA work, I had started kind of learning web design in the background. A lot of my clients were asking for it, so I started to dive into WordPress and Squarespace, Wix, like all of the different platforms. And so I kind of started teaching it to myself. And it reminded me a lot of the film editing that I had studied in school, because it was really about taking all of these seemingly separate pieces and like being able to make a full concept out of them and like a cohesive final outcome, so like really piecing everything together. And I was like, this is really cool. I actually really enjoy doing this a lot. And so eventually I kind of started thinking, is this something that I could maybe transition to full time? And at first I was like, no, that would be crazy. I already have I have a great network built up. I have like a full client roster. I'd actually brought on like 2 team members during that time. I was like, why would I ever walk away from that? It's steady income, like I really loved my clients. It just seemed, again, like I could be starting over. which is scary. And so, I kind of just got curious about it. I was like, maybe I can do both. Maybe I can do both for a while, and that could like, satisfy that creativity that I'm looking for. So I tried doing it for a while, which was fine, and then eventually I got to a point where I was like, you know what, I really, really feel like deep down that I'm meant to be doing this full time. And so I'm sure we're going to get into more of the details on this, but I really had to like, almost set up a plan for myself again, a transition plan where I was like, how am I going to make this happen? What does that mean for my current clients? And what does it mean for me to jump into a totally new arena essentially again and sort of like reestablish myself in a new way? And walk away from everything that I had almost built up over the last, I think at that point it was probably like 2 years at that point. So I would say really the transition from VA to web design was probably like the better part of a year, quite
Oh,
honestly.
wow.
Um,
Hmm.
yeah. And I think, a lot of people might assume, if you're making a transition in business that, like there's some sort of, sense of urgency where you're like, I need to, let go of all my clients tomorrow, and completely move over to this new thing. And it's like, for me, I knew I had to be comfortable. I wanted to do right by the clients that I currently had. I wanted to make sure they were set up for success. After I was gone. So I had to be really strategic about it. And I also had to like really, get myself behind it, mentally, the whole mindset of it. And really just start trusting and believing in myself and like practicing my skills and like really leaning on the relationships that I had built through my VA business, because those were people that knew, like, and trusted me. And oftentimes, those are the people you can turn to who maybe they could benefit from the new service that you're offering, right? Or, they already know, like, and trust you, so they could refer you out to other people. So, like I said, yeah, it took probably the better part of a year, and it was scary, but it's like now I'm on the other side of it, and I feel like it was probably the best decision I could have made, for myself, for my life and for my business, really just like overall.
Wow, that is
Yeah.
incredible. I mean, I actually didn't expect you to say that you transitioned over the course of a year. In my head, I was like, maybe a couple of months or something like that.
Right.
I'm curious because I feel like it's two different like mental spaces, right? I know a little bit about
Hmm.
web design and I know a little bit about what VAs do. So I'm curious, like, how did it feel both of those different jobs basically like occupying space in your mind at the same time for, a year? Like, what did that feel like?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And um, to be honest, I mean, I feel like both VA and design are like a part of me. They're just different parts of me, So it was like I was exercising both on pretty much like a daily basis. And I feel like the VA side of it, it's it's almost like I would say a more faster pace, because you're working intimately with your clients, on a day to day basis, and maybe my boundaries could have been a little bit better, but I was very like in their businesses, so probably a lot of it was like reactionary, right? Because you're
Mm,
responding to, maybe they're doing a launch, maybe, they have to send out an email campaign or something like that. So it was very fast paced, right? And then web design to me almost felt like a little bit more breathing room, because I feel like you need that sort of space, to feel inspired and really creative and like really get into that mental space where you can come to a project and work on it. It's like, I know for me, like when I have that space, I can dive into a project and work on it all day, and it feels really fun and enjoyable. So to balance the two was pretty tough, to be honest. And it was really a balancing act. And I feel like that's why at the end of the day, I was like, I feel like I kind of have to choose, right? Because it was almost getting to a point where I was like, this is a lot to keep up, for a sustained period of time,
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was thinking about like, what would that feel like? And I was like, ooh, it sounds tiring.
Yeah, it was. It
But
was sometimes, for sure.
so I'm curious because a few minutes ago you briefly touched on kind of what happened with your clients. Um, I am the type of person that sometimes, when you have to communicate something like that, where you're kind of like, yeah, I'm transitioning. Sorry, guys. You feel a little bit of that trepidation, almost like guilt around the fact that you're changing up. And I'm wondering, just like the first communication where you let all your clients know what was happening, what did that look like and what did it feel like?
Yeah. No, definitely trepidation for sure. Um, I mean, I it was really a gradual process over a couple months that I let my clients go. Some of them, maybe like the small retainer clients, I gave 30 days notice. Some of my longer term, like larger retainer clients, I gave a little bit more leeway. Um, I feel like I'd sort of been dropping hints along the way, so that it didn't feel like a total like blindsiding for them. But it was, I think the biggest lesson that I learned from it really was that it can be multiple things all at once. Like in my heart, like I knew that I was moving in the right direction. I knew that it felt right to me, it felt aligned. But I was also like deeply sad, that I was leaving clients that I'd been working with, some of them for years. We'd built up really intimate friendships and working relationships. And so that again was sort of like a balance. I had to like let myself feel all the feelings because I was like, I can be really happy and feel good about the direction that I'm going in and the work that I'm already doing in the design space. And I can also feel sad and like almost grieve, the loss of these relationships that had been built up so much over time. Um, so yeah, it's it was a
I
lot.
gotcha. Yeah, I
Yeah.
gotcha. Did were there any like reactions from clients that you didn't necessarily expect?
Mm, I wouldn't say that they were unexpected. I was very fortunate to work with just like supportive, great clients where I'm sure they weren't happy, that I was giving them this notice, and they were still supportive of me. I had a couple clients where there was some tears, on both of our parts because it's just natural to feel that way. And actually, it's kind of funny because my mom was one of my earliest clients
Hmm.
right from the very beginning. And so I knew like at some point I had to have a conversation with her where, I had been updating her about like how things are going and the changes I was making. But I feel like it was almost one of those situations where I was like, we're just going to be working together forever, but it just didn't seem plausible anymore. And I was like, I know that I need to talk to her. And I kind of had this joke with my coach where I was like, I have to fire my mother. Like it's so personal, right? And I ended up having a conversation with her, which went so well. I feel like in those situations, like we always think it's going to go horribly, right? And I was like, we can still work together. I think it's just going to look a little bit different, and at the time, one of my team members had been doing the majority of her work already. So it was great. I could kind of transition her, to fill the role that I had been in. And then I could focus more on um, the graphic design work and her website work, which I think ended up being a better fit anyway. And obviously really played to my strengths, and it worked out really well.
Oh, good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would have felt a lot of trepidation about quote unquote firing my mom.
Yeah.
So
Oh
I
my
got
gosh.
you for sure.
So much anxiety.
Oh man. So tell us a little bit about the nitty gritty of things. As you went through and transitioned out clients over the course of those months, like what were some of the things you were focused on really to make sure that it went smoothly?
Yeah. So I know for me, and this was even prior to this transition, if for some reason I didn't, if, a client no longer wanted to work with me or and I no longer wanted to work with them, something that was really important to me was that, like I said, I wanted to do right by them and really leave them in a good place post, our work together. So for a lot of them, I actually either helped them find a replacement or had one of my team members step in to fill that role. And then I made sure that I trained them really well prior to our time ending together because I know for myself, it's like if you have your own business and like one of your key team members is suddenly, gone, it's very disorienting. And it's like you have to learn um, almost like a whole new person, who's filling that role and like reestablish that relationship. So I wanted to kind of make it as smooth as possible for everyone involved. Um, because I really care about them and I didn't want to leave them like in a lurch, so to speak. I wanted them, like, even if I would no longer be there for them, a lot of them I still keep in touch with, to this day. If I was no longer there, I wanted them to feel good about whoever was stepping in and that they were someone who was like thoroughly trained and felt good in the role, before I was gone. So that was one of the main things that I did.
And that is so helpful because you're absolutely right. It truly is learning a new person, a new
Mm-hmm.
personality, a new way of communicating, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So
Yes.
I love the fact that you were more so hands on to make sure that that was a comfortable transition. That speaks
Mm-hmm.
volumes to you, lady. Volumes.
Thanks.
So I am curious. Sometimes I like get so ahead of myself. I'm like, which part am I most curious about?
All of them.
Um, all of the things. Tell me more. Just tell me more of everything. So as you were transitioning, ooh, this is a fun one. As you were transitioning and doing all the right things, being awesome, supporting, training people, all that great stuff. Were there any hiccups? Like, were there some things that just did not go as smoothly as you would have hoped they would?
Mm, I would say I was pretty fortunate in that sense. Probably like I wouldn't even call it a hiccup, just sort of like that whole situation with my mom was a big one, because obviously it's so personal and it's like regardless of whether we work together or not, we're still going to be in each other's lives. So I wanted to make sure that that was handled properly and that we both felt good about, the end result. Um, but I would say like other than that, like it really just came back to me like trusting and believing that it was possible, to find success again and to build up a client base again and all of those things. And, of course it wavered, there was doubts, there was fears, but, overall, I wouldn't say there was like any major hiccups.
Oh, that is obviously a great thing. So I'm happy to
Yes.
hear that. I have to take a moment to thank the sponsor of today's episode, Primally Pure. Y'all, I'm not going to get too deep into this, but I've tried a lot of natural deodorants, and my husband disapproves of 99.9% of them. But not my new Primally Pure Charcoal Deodorant. I have been so excited to share this with you because I have been testing it myself for 3 full months before I decided that it was worth sharing. This is absolutely my hands down favorite natural deodorant, and I've tried at least 5 or 6 brands by now. And even better, it can be your new favorite too. You can get your next order for 10% off by using the code Tiana10. That's right, TIANNA10, and you're on your way to your new favorite deodorant. And hopefully your significant other will approve of this one. So I am curious though, because you just mentioned the idea of, having to build up a new client base and re-educate your audience on what it is that you do, so on and so forth, right? So how
Hmm.
was that process of like, I think we're getting into some of the more like marketing, branding, communicating with
Yeah.
previous clients. Like walk us through all of that. We want those details.
Yeah. It was actually quite interesting because I feel like it's it takes people a while, I think, to catch on when you are making a pivot. Even if you are, marketing in a different way. I actually was still getting leads and connections from connections who were still like, are you taking on VA clients? And I was like, no, not anymore. But I was like happy to refer them out to other people, other people I knew in my network, because I just wanted to make sure that like people were taken care of. And at least if I couldn't do it, I could provide a resource or, a referral to someone else who could. Um, but really, I think for me, it was sort of like in the small steps, like, um, like it sounds so silly, but like changing my Instagram handle, changing my Instagram bio and really just like jumping full force into like true on web design marketing, because that obviously that's so much different than, marketing yourself as a VA, and really sort of like working my connections that I had already built up um, as a VA. And I think that's something that I kind of came to realize along the process was I wasn't really starting from zero, right? Because I had all this knowledge that I built up, basically learning how to build a business, from the ground up as a VA. And it's like, I was already several steps further, I think, than I thought I was, right? Because I was able to talk to like some of my current clients and they were like, oh, interesting. I actually need someone who can update my website for me. We're like things like that where some things were already in place that I can kind of lean upon, or maybe a current client knew someone else who needed web design. And it kind of just like naturally, I think, unfolded from there. And yeah, just realizing that I already had so much in place that I could build off of, if that
That
makes
makes a
sense.
lot of, it does. It makes a lot of sense. What's on my mind right now is the initial way that you communicated to those like long-term existing clients. Did you like, because sometimes I'm just going to say this, I'm just going to put it out there. Like we over rely on things like email and stuff like that. So I'm curious, how did you actually go about communicating it to them?
Mm.
Like, was it a Zoom or a message or like, what did that look like?
Yeah. Well, you know what? From my past experience, I had a client let me go, um, like on a call, and that felt really abrupt to me. Like I
Mm-hmm.
was not prepared for it. Like it came out of nowhere. And it's like there was no like ill will towards her or anything, but I was like, I kind of wish she had handled that better. And I know like for myself, I need a lot of time to process these things, and so for me, it felt right to kind of send my clients an initial email that sort of helped me organize my thoughts a little bit better, because I knew was probably going to be emotional, on both sides, right? And I was like, I need to be able to organize my thoughts and say what I want to say, and also like build them up, and make them feel, like I wasn't just letting them go, like tell them about how much I appreciated them, how much I learned from them, all of these things. And so I wanted to make sure I could say what I wanted to say before, like all of the emotions of the call, got in the way. So sent that initial email. And then I was like, of course, we can hop on a call to discuss, the details and like how I could support them through the transition and all the things like that. So I kind of wanted to let them have their time to process
Mm-hmm.
as well, separately from being on a call with me, because I didn't want to shock them in any way. Because, like I said, I know how that feels. And, I have a lot of respect for those clients because I've been working with them for so long. I was like, they deserve, some sort of explanation. They deserve, like, to know how I feel. And then we can, like, talk about, the details and how this is going to work.
Okay.
Fortunately,
So
it was well received. I think, at least for the most part. So yeah, that
no,
that was how it went
zero.
down.
I gotcha. So zero shade to that approach. I do like that approach. It reminds me a lot of times in the online space when like leaders are giving feedback, they, like corrective feedback, right? So it's a little bit of that
Hmm.
constructive criticism.
Yep.
So a lot of times what they'll end up doing is sending out an email and just saying like, hey, I want to have a meeting to discuss X, Y, and Z, and kind of just set that expectation. So the
Exactly.
person knows what's coming. So they're not just like shocked when they get on the phone. So I see what you're saying. But can I say, this is like a little bit of tea. Just like you got fired on a call, I talk to VAs all the time, right? Because I work with their bosses.
Hmm.
And the worst though is I was talking to a VA and she got fired in an email with no offer of like getting on a call to discuss it.
Oh
And I was
no.
like, it's like the polar opposite, right? So I digress, y'all, but we're getting into a little bit of like, what does good communication look like? I really
Yes.
like what you did there, Haylee.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. No, I would always like give them the option to get on a call because I was like, they need to, not like speak their piece, but I feel like
Yeah.
they deserve to like say what they need to say as well. And it's a two-way communication, right? It's like I had already made
Mhm.
my decision, but we're still both humans. We need to talk about it and talk about what it's going to look like because we're probably going to still be like working with each other for at least another month or so, right? So, you know, don't want that to be awkward.
Absolutely. That right there is a good piece of advice. So I am curious now, let's pivot a little bit. What has been your experience since you made this leap, since you just like followed your instincts, followed that intuition, and was like, all right, I'm doing this over the course of a year because slow and steady wins the race. But still, what has it felt like since you've like fully immersed yourself into the web design space?
Oh, I mean, honestly, it feels like a whole new world. A little Aladdin in there. Yeah, it's been honestly better than I could have expected. Because like I said before, it's like I really had to lean in hard, to that trust and belief in myself. And to know that like even though I was letting clients go and that felt in some sense wrong, because it's like our relationship was still good, like the work we were doing together was good. It was like it just wasn't a fit anymore. So that felt wrong in a sense, but I was like, there's so much that feels right. So once I kind of let that last client go, it was like, honestly, it felt like I could breathe a little bit more, because it was such a change in pace from what I was used to. Because like I was saying, it was like the VA world felt like a little bit of a rat race, so to speak. A little bit of that like 9 to 5 energy where it's like you feel like you're just kind of like task after task after task. Um,
Hmm.
and it was like diving into the creative world, like full on, was like something that I probably hadn't felt in like a long time, to be honest. Like, not even with that like school photographer job, but it was just like, wow, I can really, set this new direction for myself and my business. And it finally felt like I had a business that supported the life that I wanted to live. I was like, I don't want to be working all the time around the clock. I want to be able to, kind of ease in and out of work when it feels good for me. And not maybe not have, clients that have access to me all of the time. So yeah, it was just a slower pace, which I think really suits me. And it's like it may not be the same for everyone, but I feel like it was really just about what felt right for me and defining how I wanted my life and business to look and like really giving myself permission to like step into it, to be quite honest. Because on the other hand, people love to complain about their jobs, right?
Oh yeah. Hmm.
So to actually say like, wow, I really love the work that I'm doing, I love the clients that I'm serving, people are like, what? It's like not heard, I think, as much, like outside of the online space. So it almost felt like a little bit braggy. I was like, people don't really understand, friends, family, people that like didn't have their own businesses. I was like, wow, my life has changed so much. It's so different. And they're like, yeah, but I still hate my work. And I was like, oh, okay. you know?
Sorry.
Um, so like there was that kind of that weird, like uncomfortability of like, they don't really get what I'm going after, but I'm like, everyone should feel like this. Everyone should be doing work that they love and like working with people that they love. So it was kind of like coming to terms with that as well, and being okay with it.
Yes. Oh my God. Let me tell you, my husband is a firefighter, actually. This is totally random,
Mm.
but I'm just getting at the point that I feel what you're saying because he's wanted to be a firefighter since I met him when I was like 16 years old, right? So he is
Oh,
obsessed with it. He's like one of those weird people who's just like, I love my job. Come visit me. It's great here. And I'm just like, so it was so funny because like when I decided to step into entrepreneurship, literally my saying to him was, I just want to love what I do as much as you do. And I think you're so
yeah.
right. Like we deserve to be excited about our jobs. I love that that's how you're feeling these days.
Yeah, thank you. It's like apparently it's taken a long time to get here, but like, the point is I'm here now, and it's like I feel like we should all give ourselves that permission to like really discover what like lights us up, and it's like why are we so afraid to step into that, you know?
Whew, that is
Hmm.
a big conversation for
Oh
another
yeah.
day, let me tell you.
Oh yes.
Well, with that in mind, I'm wondering, is there any advice? Just like I feel like you've given so many just nuggets of wisdom for anybody who's thinking about entering into a transition like this. But is there any final advice that you would give someone who feels the need or feels the pull to change things up a bit?
Yeah. I would say first of all maybe to take a look at what are those nudges, what are those little like knocks that you're hearing, and sort of like get curious about it. Take those first few steps and really like consider what it's trying to tell you, like what's like I was like, oh, web design seems really interesting, but like what's behind that I'm really attracted to, right? It's the type of work, but also like the pace of the work. um so really get behind that and start to figure out like what's attracting you to that, because I feel like I've heard this saying somewhere, but it's like if the dream is in you, it's for you, or something like that. So it's like if you keep hearing these things, come up for you again and again, obviously there's a reason. So like get curious about that, figure out what it is, and also just practically, figure out what that would look like. And I know for me, like I said, I had to make a plan. I had to have some concrete steps in place. And, obviously it doesn't have to take a year. Like you said, it could take a couple months or weeks or whatever it is, and really figure out what feels right and comfortable to you. Because that's really what it's about. Like you don't have to follow anyone else's timeline. Sometimes I certainly felt like, oh my gosh, this isn't happening fast enough. Right. But at the same time, I was like, this is actually the right pace for me, because if it was happening any faster, I would probably feel overwhelmed, and then like take 10 steps back. And like, that's not what I
Hmm.
wanted to do. I just wanted to go like at a slow, steady pace and ultimately know that I would get there eventually. So figure out what that end goal is for you and kind of just keep taking steps toward it at whatever pace makes the most sense for you.
I love it. Literally the tortoise and the hare, you guys. I keep coming
Yeah,
back to that, but those are the vibes I'm getting.
that's it.
Oh man, that was lovely advice. So I'm just covering my bases here. Is there anything that I missed that like you really wish I would have asked you?
Mm. Honestly, I feel like that's a pretty good picture of it. I
That's a
feel like
wrap, folks.
that's most of it.
Oh, so good then. So good. Okay, Haley, tell everyone just like where they can find you. If you have anything interesting going on, let them know, but I know that the people want to find you and get more of this good wisdom. So let them know.
Yeah, so you can find me over at on Instagram at Seek Balance Design. Love to have conversations with people over there, and I'm always giving little like tips and advice on how you can like up level your website to just to achieve more and bring you more results. And also over on my website at seekbalancedesign.com.
Beautiful. Y'all, if you don't go check Haylee out right now, you're missing it. Okay. Haylee, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. This was really a lovely conversation. I really appreciate you coming and sharing with us.
Yeah, thank you. This was awesome.